As you know, on this program, I've been very clear to you about Hamas and other Islamist extremist organisations, what motivates them and how they operate. Now, this is crucial to understand because of the threat they pose to us, and in the case of Hamas, the atrocities they've committed against Israel and the war they deliberately started and then extended for 2 years. And while Hamas are the past masters at murder, rape and torture, the past masters in terrorising people with sickening crimes and using their own people as human shields, they're also masters of propaganda. And they've used every bit of trauma and every drop of blood over many years to feed lies to the Western media about Israel and its tactics and its soldiers. They've been so successful that they've had people marching in the streets of Western nations repeatedly, demonising Israel, with some repeating Hamas slogans like "River to the Sea," calling for the elimination of Israel, shouting about a genocide that never happened, a starvation policy that never happened, and war crimes that never happened. They've done this with the complicit support of the usual United Nations agencies and other NGOs, and they've done it while they've been killing Israeli civilians, firing rockets at Israeli civilians, and holding Israeli civilians as hostages, a blatant and daily war crime. Yet Western media have routinely reported their claims and their statistics as fact, and they've failed to be honest with audiences about how Hamas terrorises its own people, the people of Gaza. And nor have they been honest about how the only media coverage that gets out of Gaza is coverage that this Islamist terrorist organisation approves. Which is why it was important to share with you last month some blood-curdling footage of how Hamas operates, as well as some insight into how our own taxpayer-funded media censors the news that it shares with Australians. And a warning, these images are distressing. And here they are executing at least 3 people accused of collaborating with Israel. We won't show you what happens next, but believe me, the video does show the executions. This is the reality of Hamas-run Gaza, exposed on the very day that our government recognised the non-existent state of Palestine, which is half run by Hamas at the moment. And while the ABC gave blanket coverage of Albanese and Wong in New York, we have found no coverage of these real events in Gaza on the ABC website. Perhaps they'll enlighten us. But this is happening even though the BBC reported these executions and they verified that the video was shot in the middle of Gaza City. Apparently, none of this was news at the ABC. I guess they were too busy telling Australians that Israel is the problem. Yeah, we still haven't been able to find any ABC coverage of that event, and Senator Jacinta Nampijinpa-Price took this up directly with the ABC boss in Senate estimates yesterday.
On Sky News, the Kenny Report on Tuesday the 23rd of September, Kenny noted that while the ABC gave blanket coverage of Albanese and Wong in New York, we have found no coverage of these real events in Gaza on the ABC website. Now, I've also done a bit of research for ABC's coverage of this story and I haven't found anything. I'm happy to stand corrected if that's not the case, but it appears as though these events weren't widely covered by the ABC, and I suppose I'd like to understand why that's the case.
Why indeed? I think we all know, but it was worth asking. Well, kind of, because the answer from the ABC boss was delusional.
I can't talk to every editorial decision that gets made in the context of that coverage, and Mr Fang might have some additions on this, but I think we can be incredibly proud of our coverage and the quality and extensiveness of it.
Proud? It's been extensive, all right, but quality? The ABC's coverage of the Middle East over the past 2 years has been one of the worst episodes in its biased and one-sided reporting, rivalling its coverage of climate change and the way it bought into hook, line and sinker the Trump-Russian collusion conspiracy theory. On the Gaza war, the ABC has been relentlessly anti-Israel. It's demonised Israel, and it's run Hamas propaganda without skepticism and without the ability to fact-check it. It's been shameful, ignoring facts, avoiding reality, and by vilifying Israel, fueling hatred. Marx has no idea why the ABC did not report those recent public executions by Hamas.
The particular story you refer to in terms of Mr Kenny, I'm not aware of that particular story. I'm not aware of the decision that was made to cover or not cover that particular issue. Obviously, I don't have any doubt that the ABC has covered the atrocities of Hamas and how they operate. I don't think our audience would be any doubts about that.
Well, I think they would be. I don't think the ABC audiences would have any awareness of how Hamas operates. Although, to be fair, I did manage to find one story in this mountain of coverage, one story that relayed some of the brutal reality. But that, of course, pales into insignificance compared to the unproven, unlikely and untrue claims the ABC has run on air and online against Israel day and night now for years. And this has consequences. The media's delinquency has consequences, as Senator Nabajimpa Price pointed out.
I just wanted to, I suppose, make the point that we have covered extensively and previously the conduct of Hamas.
Okay, well, can I get that on notice, please? Because I think given that now, in terms of social cohesion in our own country, we're seeing a lot of support for Hamas. I mean, we've seen just this week, glory to Hamas and the main street in Melbourne. I would have thought that it would have been important to cover all aspects of the conduct of a terrorist organisation that are being glorified now in our country. And missing this, I think, is a huge missed opportunity to do so the Australian public can be truly informed as to the conduct of a terrorism organisation that is gaining support in our country and creating more division in our country than unity. I think it is a responsibility of the ABC to be able to do that effectively. So can I please get that on notice, exactly why, to understand why this specific story was not covered by the ABC.
I can't wait to see what coverage the ABC comes up with. And if this peace deal really does hold, as we all hope, let's hope the ABC shares information from those hostages who escaped with their lives and from the newly liberated people of Gaza about what's been going on in Gaza. Because if they do, it'll prove to be a very different story to the one the ABC and so much of the media has shared over the past 2 years.